Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking movies, TV, comics, and more. Join in the conversation on our social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome back for another edition of the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. What is going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us this week. My name is Ken M. Joining me in the studio, as always, you know him. He's the co-host. His name is Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, we have a lot to talk about in the land of movies, TV, comics, and more, so definitely join in the conversation on social media. You can find all our accounts and so much more at OchoDuroParlayHour.com. But let us kick off this edition of the ODPH recapping and reviewing the biggest movie of 2020 per se, Pat?
Yeah. Normally I'd say it's a pretty big movie, but it's kind of hard to judge with everything going on, you know, in a normal year that we were kind of expecting and predicting to have happen. But then once things happen the way they were, biggest movie of 2020.
Definitely has to be. And that movie is
Wonder Woman 84 or Wonder Woman 1984 if you want to give the full title.
Yes. The long-awaited sequel to 2017's Wonder Woman, directed by Patty Jenkins, starring the one and only Gal Gadot, has finally graced us either via HBO Max, or if you're lucky to go to the theaters and see it, you can go see it.
Or if you got a dope-ass projector, which I'm envious of you.
Yeah, if you have one of those, man, I'm jealous as well. So the movie dropped on Christmas Day. We have our reviews. We've been waiting to post about this and talk about it. So here is the time we're going to do it.
And I just want to say, neither of us have spoken to each other about this film since we've seen it. When you hear our reactions and us exchanging dialogue back and forth, this isn't with any conversations built into this. Also, I want to say, to you motherfuckers who were dropping spoilers 12 hours after the fucking movie came out on quite possibly the busiest day of the year for people, fuck you.
Yeah.
Because I was not able to watch it as soon as it dropped because, well, I had two places to be that day. One part of the day with my girlfriend's family and then part with my family. And I know my brother and his girlfriend wanted to watch it, so we were going to wait and all watch it together. So I literally was dodging spoilers from about... not like very shortly after the damn thing came out until I could finish it. So fuck you.
Exactly. We have instituted the 72-hour embargo that you do not post any kind of spoilers going on any which way, shape, or form on the ODPH social media because we want to give fans the opportunity to watch this firsthand. That you should be able to make up your own mind because it's so big and important of a movie, as we talked about last episode with Wonder Woman 84. So that all being said, we have the 72-hour window has now finally wrapped up. We are going to be talking spoilers, so if you haven't seen it yet, pause the episode, jump in the conversation, because we are going to deep dive into Wonder Woman 1984 in 3, 2, 1. Pad, what did you think?
I thought it was okay. Not the greatest sequel of all time by any means, but it was okay. And my biggest issue with it, and I'm sure we'll get into this in a minute, was how long it took to get anything like any sort of substantive story going. Like it was at least like an hour in before you really got the ball rolling. But just in general, it was okay.
I was disappointed.
Okay.
But I will break it down as we go on, because where the movie kicks off into is we have a trip back to Themyscira, and you see that young Diana is trying to compete in a competition for something. I mean, this was just a cool throwback. I mean, it's a nice introduction to the movie as we see that she's back and obviously trying to win some competition. And where she goes, she loses her horse during this. And that's kind of the big takeaway, that she had to improvise to get her horse back to win said competition.
Yep.
And obviously her aunt decided to step in and take it away from her, which Robin Young does reprise the role of Auntie Pope to be the overseeing mentor to Diana. And the moral of this whole montage, which, I mean, I will say it was a cool action sequence. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But the moral was trying to say that no true hero was born from lies.
Also, don't cut corners.
But then again, in the same breath, though, I have to say this. She improvised when she lost her horse.
See, I didn't even think she initially, lost the competition because she lost a horse and this and that. She missed one of the targets. when she was going along, because there was the one she was supposed to hit when she was going down the trail, that because she had lost her horse and went sliding down the whatever that was,
Yeah.
she completely that's what I thought it was that, obviously there's a whole don't cut corners, don't do this, don't do that, but it was also the fact that, hey, you missed one of the markers.
That could have been, and like I say, I just took it as like she was improvising on the fly.
Oh yeah, no, which I agree, and I think normally they'd look at that and go, oh no, yeah, that's a virtue, but you're obviously trying to teach her a lesson.
She was trying to teach her a lesson. So like I say, Antope was definitely trying to be the mentor, and that was kind of be the underlying theme for the movie. Mm-hmm. So note to self, okay, the theme is supposed to be no true hero is born from lies.
Right.
So let us fast forward to 1984.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we know the last time we saw Diana was in World War I time.
Yep.
So now she is established in Washington, D.C. She's working at the Smithsonian.
Yep.
And during this, she's also still crime fighting as Wonder Woman.
And not really trying to hide it as much as we thought.
Well, yeah, that was the kind of the puzzling point, too, because she was trying to be incognito.
While also not.
Yeah, it was kind of this weird vibe that was set.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously in bright sunlight, it's a little hard to kind of conspicuously be like Batman and fight the bad guys. But it's funny because there's the one sequence where she's stopping the robbery in the mall and she takes out all of the security cameras. Mm-hmm. But she's fighting in front of people, and the only way she has of stopping people from telling about her is, shh, let's keep it our little secret. So it's like, okay.
Well, the one thing we all have to remember, too, is it being 1984, there's no camera phones.
Sure.
And the time period it was written for, it has that whole Stranger Things vibe to it.
Okay.
But it's not the same. And obviously this was kind of you would say a throwaway scene of action.
Yeah.
You can, because obviously you have a heist of a jewelry store that they know the people that own the store are selling black market artifacts. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of like, okay, well, this is a deeper mystery going involved.
Sure.
But we'll roll with it. And obviously you have a great action sequence with Gal Gadot involved.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is one of the highlights of Wonder Woman. That when they do their big action sequences, it pays off. Mm-hmm. So that being said, there's a bunch of artifacts that come to the Smithsonian. Diana is now going to investigate with a new employee that is there to, one, Barbara Minerva, played by Kristen Wiig, who is the typical awkward friend.
Yeah.
That is
trying to fit in but doesn't.
Which is so 1980s.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to put that in perspective.
Yeah.
That, okay, it's during this time period, stuff's a little more cliche, we'll say.
Sure.
But either way, they are investigating what is going on with what the FBI has brought them, because they have to figure out, okay, what is the deal with these artifacts? Like, why were they so important?
Were so important, and I think also it was a case of just like, hey, we got to figure out if anybody actually owns these things and like give them back to them. So naturally, the Smithsonian made perfect sense.
Oh yeah, it absolutely did. So I mean, it fits what it needs to.
Yeah.
They both come across though one big item that we didn't think about at first, but yet again, it turned out to be a bigger deal at later on in the film, and that is the Dreamstone. Mm-hmm. And there is an inscription on it, and what it sums up is the possessor of the stone can make a wish, and you have to give up something for it.
Yep.
So during this time, we know that Diana somehow does the wish to see her long-lost love, Steve Trevor, come back to life.
Yeah.
We don't know what the deal is supposed to be with this, but she makes the deal.
Yeah, and I mean, this was kind of one of the confusing parts of it, was that she holds it, and I can't remember, because I've only seen the movie once, if it was like they were, because they read the description or whatever it was, I know, at one point, and I can't remember if it was like, oh yeah, it grants wishes, and, you know, she just kind of in her head went, boy, it sure would be nice to see Steve again, type. It was one of those moments that, like, I feel like even if you did like a voiceover inner monologue type of thing, would have explained it a little bit better, because as is in the film, she holds the stone and he just shows up.
Yeah, it's just this weird sequence.
Yeah.
And how he even shows up, too, is a little weirder, but I digress. So you have both Diana read this, and then Barbara reads this, too, because she basically says, I want to be more like Diana.
Yeah. Boy, was that a wish she didn't know what she was getting into.
Oh, exactly. So during this time, though, Diana goes back. There's a big gala that's happening.
Yep.
And she sees this man come up and start talking to her. Lo and behold, it is Steve Trevor, played by Chris Pine. Mm-hmm. Now, Pine is only seen to Diana.
Yep.
Everybody else is seeing this random stranger. Mm-hmm. Now, They did not, in my opinion, do a good job about clarifying this.
No, they didn't.
No, this was just like, okay,
No.
he's Steve Trevor to her, but to everybody else, he's some random guy.
Well, I feel like maybe there would have been an opportunity to, show them from somebody else's perspective.
Yeah.
And you see the other guy there, because it was just very confusing. It was like, wait, so this guy just ceased to exist, and Steve took over his body and took over his likeness, or took over his body and made him look like him, or like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, it just wasn't clarified at all, and I thought that really hurt what they were trying to do, because it wasn't really flat out said. Like, she made the line about making the wish, but as we find out later in the film, you're supposed to give up something.
Yep.
At which point did we ever find that out? I don't think we did. So
not till later in the film.
Not till real later in the film.
We did find out, though.
But you have to make that deal. And at the same time, too, Barbara did read it off, and like we said, she wanted to be more like Diana.
Yep.
Well, she does develop more confidence because she is attacked at one point, and Diana has to make her save. So you do see that she's now coming of age of being somebody that is more confident, and the power of the stone is taking hold of her.
Right.
And this also ties into a person that decides to have a little ulterior motives going on with this. That is one Maxwell Lord, played by Pedro Pascal.
If this man doesn't get an award this year for something, it's a goddamn crime.
If there's anybody that has won 2020, it's Pedro Pascal.
Yo, it's this guy.
Is this guy.
You go from the last episode of Mandalorian and just kind of like the emotional range of that with what his character was doing to this, night and day.
Oh, absolutely. And he comes in playing the ultimate 80s representation. Greed is good.
Yup.
Bigger is better.
Money.
Yeah, because we see him earlier on a TV screen, and he's doing the whole spiel about, if you want something, take it, it's yours.
Yeah, yeah.
And it represents a lot if you've ever seen Wall Street by Michael Douglas. Greed is good. Is that vibe.
Yeah.
I know they can make comparisons to other people, but is what it is. He is representing the 80s to the letter.
Oh, my God, yeah.
And obviously, he comes to the Smithsonian looking for information, and he does come across the Dreamstone as well. So when they go back to the gala, he winds up seducing Barbara, who is now coming into grips that she's now not the same person she is. Like I said, it's a changing of age, I would say.
Yep.
As during this, though, Maxwell seduces her, gets the Dreamstone, and thus his wish is to become the embodiment of the stone. So basically, he becomes the stone.
Yeah.
Which is a wild take.
Yeah, different.
I was okay with it.
Yeah.
Didn't have any issues with it. Because you knew that he was trying to do something. And then obviously we knew from his backstory that he was essentially a con man.
Yep.
That he was fronting about an oil company that he had. He was lying to investors. He's lying to his son that he was, saying, okay, well, you can have this, but he didn't want to spend any time with him. And that becomes an underlying theme going on throughout the movie.
Right.
Because once Maxwell Lord starts encompassing the power of the Dreamstone, we see a dramatic change of pace in the movie. This is where the movie gets interesting to a degree.
And we should note that this isn't until like well over an hour into the movie.
Right.
Which is one of my gripes about the film is like, I get that one of the things they say with sequels, and not just movies, but like video games and books or everything else, is that it's a lot easier than the first one because you've got the characters already set up, you've got the backstory already set up. Yeah, sure, you got to do some more different backstory to introduce new characters and different villains, but it should be relatively easier, and to a degree it is. But I feel like an hour before things really start picking up kind of hurt the film.
Oh, I agree too. For being 2.5 hours, they legit could have cut 45 minutes out of this film and told the same damn story.
Yeah.
I digress. We go on to see Maxwell Lord is now rising through the, you would say political ranks. You could say the world ranks, the financial ranks. He's turning his company around.
Dude's rising faster in the world than Dwayne Johnson did.
Exactly. He is now taking over the world easily. And then we kind of get into this little sub-story about where he goes to Cairo because he's trying to talk to somebody that is in charge of the oil that is over there.
Yeah.
And wants to basically buy it, but give him his one wish. After a little double cross, Maxwell Lord takes his whole security force after he winds up giving him the land of Egypt.
Yeah, that whole sequence was confusing too because the oil person, head person, whatever it is, that whole sequence was very fast and very confusing because like the walls just started showing up. And I was like, wait, what the hell is going on? Why are these here? And all of a sudden it's a second nation and this, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, there's a lot of fast-moving parts with this that they didn't really explain. Mm-hmm. And we knew that why he went over to Cairo, but then again, we get into this really crazy fight sequence.
It's like they just want to get to the fight sequence as fast as humanly possible. And, let's just skim over the details.
Oh, they did, because if you think about it, when they wind up stealing the jet, this is Diana and Steve.
Sure.
They just randomly go to Cairo looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
They wind up unveiling this power that Diana has to turn the plane invisible. So now, at least, I will say that was kind of an interesting moment.
Well, and at least they explained that a little bit. She's like, "Oh, it's a power." What did she say? My father
That Zeus gave her.
That Zeus gave her. I've been working on it, but I've only ever. She only ever was able to do it on. Well, what did she say? A bowl?
Yeah, it was
something small.
It was a small object.
At least with that, it wasn't. She just pulled it out and goes, "Oh, hey, I can do this now." I was like, "Oh, okay, no, okay." She got this from Zeus. She's been working on it. Okay.
Yes. So she does do this flyover. They wind up going to Cairo. And this is where stuff gets a little awkward, you'd say, because this is the first time that we saw her get hurt in action.
Mm-hmm.
And she does have this great fight sequence against Maxwell Lord's security detail.
That scene was awesome.
Yeah, it absolutely was. The fight sequences, I would say, is a very big saving grace to this. But once you get back to the story, and then it's somehow revealed now that Dallas is the person behind the Dreamstone, who is basically the DC version of Loki.
Yeah.
If you want to just have a quick comparison.
Yeah, he is the god of lies, treachery, deception, and mischief, which, well, yeah, that sounds like Loki.
Yeah, it's Loki to the degree. And then you find out the deal with this stone is, yeah, you're able to grant a wish, but it takes a toll.
Should have brought in Tom Hiddleston for this role. I don't know why.
You know, Dallas in the comics is not that big of a character.
Well, okay.
It would have been a waste of his time. I fully agree that they should have done a little more detail to it. But
Yeah.
I understand why, because obviously in 2017, the main villain was Ares.
Right.
You don't want to have God versus God for a time,
Sure.
for a second time,
Sure.
and so forth. But they wind up like adding these details later. So, and then you realize that, okay, the deal is Diana gave up her powers.
Mm-hmm.
So now she's technically mortal.
Yeah, well, mortal asterisk. She could still fight and kick ass and all this, but just a little less so.
Yeah, it's not really defined of what she gave up, and you kind of put it together that when she's hurt.
The only thing I can think is like it felt to me like she gave up her powers, but it wasn't like a just gone. It was kind of like they're slowly going away, because you notice it. You notice at first nothing
happens.
Nothing happens. But as time goes on, she gets hit by the stray bullet and she's bleeding. She goes to do the gauntlet thing later in the movie, and it just doesn't have the same oomph. So it seems like it's this kind of like degrading losing of her power.
Yeah, which the only person who's realizing this is Steve Trevor.
And he's trying to like, hey, you need to realize what the fuck is going on. And she's like, I don't care.
Yeah, she doesn't care, and because obviously she's got the love of her life back. But I will say this: Chris Pine was very good reprising his role in Steve Trevor.
Yeah.
He's one of the highlights of the movie.
Absolutely.
And I know they focused a lot more on their romance and the the fish out of water, man out of time sequence.
Yeah, which they didn't dwell on it, which was good.
They didn't dwell on it, which you understand that because we've already had a movie where they established this.
Right.
So I mean, this is one point of doing a sequel. You don't need to spend a ton of time on this. Mm-hmm. But I thought they did drag it out a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe so much looking at the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
So I was not fully engulfed with it as much as other people have been. But we get back to the story that Maxwell Lord is now going after the U.S. Government and wants the president's access because he wants to get more wishes to people. He wants to get more.
Well, and I think he's finally he obviously, and this was one thing I don't think they ever explained, was just how the fuck he knew about all this. Other than maybe research or something. I felt like that could have used some explanation, even just a brief, little 2-sentence mention. But you got to figure he's kind of understanding and digesting and getting his powers a little bit more. So he's like, oh, I can get kind of high with this. Let me see how far I can go. And it was just one of those, this wasn't his original plan, but as time went along, he goes, oh, this can really work in my favor.
Yeah, it definitely could. And I think that they did kind of mention vaguely that he did have some interest in this. Like they covered some files, but they didn't really spend a ton of time on it because now all of a sudden this ordinary con man is knowing about this ancient artifact out of nowhere.
Right, ancient artifact that at least from what I remember in the film, because what's her name? Barbara?
Yeah.
Barbara does some research for Diana. And that there was only like two, 3 or 4 mentions of this throughout history. That one was with the Mayans, the other one was with the ancient Romans, and I forget the other two, 1 or 2. But like each time they used it, the civilization fell, and that was kind of it. It was almost like there's mentions of it, and there's depictions of it, but not much else past that. So it's like, how the fuck is he learning about this?
Right. Which, I mean, I know they said that quick line, but I don't think it was enough to really establish why he's been chasing this.
No.
Because obviously when he shows up at the Smithsonian, he's there with ulterior motives. But for a guy that's just been a normal head of an oil company,
like a single dad,
yeah, they don't really go into full details, which I think somewhat hurt the film as well.
Yeah.
But when we get back to the story, though, he's now working his way through the U.S. government because he wants to get more people wishes because he's now deteriorating. The stone is now taking its toll on him physically.
Right, because one of the things that the stone says is it gives only as much as it takes, or maybe I have that backwards.
Right.
So he's giving out all of these wishes and wishes and wishes and wishes, and it's just draining him dry.
It's absolutely breaking him down. So Diana and Steve are trying to go confront him. But at the same time, when Diana won't give up her wish, Barbara is not giving up hers.
No.
That she is now fully enthralled in the life she's living now, that she's no longer a victim. Because as you see, they do go back to the time where she was attacked. She finds the attacker and nearly beats him to death.
Mm-hmm.
So it's to say that she's now fully encompassed who she is now, and this is who she wants to be. So she is going to go out of her way to stop Diana, and they do wind up going to the White House.
Yeah.
And they do have this massive battle, which I have to say, once again, the action sequence here,
awesome.
Yeah. No issues with this.
No.
But as Maxwell Lord is now escaping to go to the secret hideout where the satellites are and across the world, which I thought this was going to be Brother Eye. I didn't see this in the movie, so I know if you read comics, you know what Brother Eye is.
Might be something they bring in later if they want to.
Well, I think they almost have to, but I thought which I'll explain when we get to the ending of the film, I thought they did drop the ball on something that they could have done. Brother Eye was something I thought they should have just established.
Like I said, it could be something like how they retconned in the Marvel movies that the kid in the Iron Man mask in Iron Man, what was that, 2? Oh, they retconned that. Oh, yeah, that was a young Peter Parker.
Oh, yeah.
They can do something like that. Like, oh, hey, yeah, that thing you saw in Wonder Woman 84 that was this. Oh, yeah, that was Brother Eye.
They definitely have to kind of look into that. But as now they're making the valiant plea to go stop Maxwell Lord, Steve Trevor finally talks Diana into giving up her wish.
I'm so glad they didn't do this like they did in the comics.
Yeah, I agree too. This
was handled a lot better.
It was handled a lot better, but I thought they drug it out though.
Yeah.
The only thing is, I understand Diana lost the love of her life. Sure, I get that. But now once she's getting her strength and now she's now able to fly, which came out of nowhere.
Well, I think at first it was gliding because it was, or the quote Toy Story, falling with style.
Yeah.
It definitely felt like at first it was just gliding because to me it looked like she was kind of going down as she was doing it, and she kept having to lasso stuff to keep going. So it was almost like Spider-Man. I don't think she was able to fully fly until the end of the movie.
She wasn't, but this is one thing that I got to really take away from it too. I thought this hurt because they drug this scene out where she's just, skating through the clouds and then she's lassoing the lightning.
Yeah.
I understand they did in the comics, sure, but for the movie, I thought they just drug this way too long.
Yeah, I felt like they used the whole lassoing to jump like the Hulk thing a little too much.
Yeah.
It was a cool effect and it was really cool to see, with all of that, but just it just felt overused to me.
Yeah, I agree too. I just saw that they just kept going, just dragging it out, and this had reminded me of the third act in Wonder Woman, in 2017.
Yeah,
where she's giving those long speeches and just going on, and it's like you don't need that much to build up the moment. We understand she's hurt. We understand she's now getting her powers back, but it's like this is just drawing on and on and on. But the one aspect is that I thought they really kind of dropped the ball on is, okay, so she's flying towards this secret location, correct?
Yep.
At which point does she fly back home to go get the Golden Eagle armor?
She had it with her. She had it with her because I don't think that was the one they had on the island. I think that was the actual set, because if you remember, there was a sequence earlier in the movie, I think it's when they first go to her apartment, and then she's talking to Steve, and Steve's looking around her apartment, and that's when he sees the photo of her at Trevor Ranch, and they go looking around, and that's when they go into the side room. It's got all the TVs in the world newsfeed, and he goes, "Wow, this is actually really impressive." she's doing something, looking at the TV screen, computer screen, whatever it is, and there's this mummy-shaped looking thing in the corner of in the side of the room, and he goes, "Oh, what's this?" And that's when she explains what it is. So she had that there in DC with her.
Right, but when she's flying, and by the time she gets to the island, like, they never say about her going back to go get it.
Well, I mean, they also didn't say where the island was.
Well, exactly.
Could have been on the way.
Like I said, they left off a ton of details.
You'll say too much suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, because the whole deal about the armor is, like, this is where the whole Olympics at Themyscira was, I was saying, is Themyscira Ninja Warrior, because that's the way it kind of felt like with the obstacle course. They're trying to build up about how it's worthy of the armor, worthy of golden, and then they kind of touch upon it very quickly about the whole story of Astera, who was using the armor to defend the Amazons from the attack of man.
Yeah, and I think that's partially why she started working with the Smithsonian, was that because she said she went looking for this and she looked all over the world for it.
Well, she went looking for Asteria,
right?
But she couldn't find her. But she found the armor.
Right, she found the armor. So what the hell was on the island? Was that just a replica?
That's the whole thing. Like, they did this whole sequence where she flew back to go get the armor and then flew to the island. They never touched upon it, which I was like, okay, this is...
Well, I'm just even saying, like, because I'm thinking there was two separate armors.
No, there isn't, yeah.
Well, no, because she had the armor with her in her apartment.
Right, she did.
So did she bring it with her from the island? Like,
she went back to their apartment to go get it and then flew to the island, which they decided to cut off that whole sequence. Right. So, like, because magically, when she shows up at the island... Barbara is already there with Maxwell Lord, because once they made the valiant escape from the White House, she's now basically being his muscle.
Right,
which
and Barbara at this point has made her second wish.
Well, yeah, because all of a sudden Maxwell Lord is like, you've been such a loyal friend to me, you can take another wish.
I feel like that was a plot hole, because the way I interpreted it was they got a wish. Not, this ain't Genie from Aladdin.
Yeah.
So she already made her wish to go, oh, I want to be more like Diana. So what is it? All of a sudden, because it's in somebody else, that she can get another wish? Like, okay.
Yeah, it was lazy writing, in my opinion. Like, that's one thing I really, like I say, I was very disappointed with this film, because there are plot holes throughout this.
Yeah.
This was another one, because all of a sudden, she says how she wants to be a apex predator.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
it's a little cheesy.
It's cheesy.
Does that mean she's going to start doing RKOs out of nowhere?
Immediately I said, if Randy Orton is not in this, I am going to throw something. But I also go back to say, okay, this reminds me of Supergirl, when the character decided to come out and say, I'm Cyborg Superman.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, and how awkward that comment was.
Yeah.
This was the same kind of vibe, because unless you were really focusing on everything at the Smithsonian. And if you weren't, because let's face it, unless you read the comics, you probably weren't focusing on the cheetah creatures she had in her office space.
It's like Christ, she had it on her feet.
Exactly. You had to really be paying attention to understand, okay, why is that line? But if you're not familiar, you're going, okay, why all of a sudden is an apex predator, and then she winds up mutating into the cheetah.
Right.
Which is not how it goes in the comics by any which way. There's been multiple versions, so I'm not going to get into that just right now.
Well, and I can say from my viewing experience, I watched it because I didn't finish it the first night, partially with my brother and his girlfriend, and then my girlfriend, and then the second part and first part with my dad. When we were watching it, finishing it the next day, neither my dad nor my girlfriend knew cheetah or anything. So once they heard the line, they go, "What the hell's that mean?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, you'll see."
Exactly. For mainstream fans, and for people that just knew Wonder Woman 2017, this was like a what line?
Yeah.
And then even for me, who I've read comics since I could walk, I'm going, okay, you're going to force this line in that's going to come off really super cheesy. I understand we're supposed to keep the 80s vibe here, but this is a little much too much cheese.
Needed more synth.
Yeah, you needed something. And you know what? It didn't happen because...
So there wasn't enough synth.
Yeah, there wasn't. There wasn't. No.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm talking like Stranger Things level of synth.
Yeah, we needed a lot more of that. Like I say, for the vision of the 1984 that they told, was not super impressed with. And even when we get to the fight scenes, because now all of a sudden Diana comes bursting on the island wearing the Golden Eagle armor. Mm-hmm. And they do have this fight, if you can call it that. But it was basically a squash match.
Oh, so yeah, if she didn't have the armor, she'd have gotten her ass whooped.
Well, if you think about it, she gets the armor and Cheetah runs, like rips that thing apart.
Oh, so yeah, the armor that's supposed to be like the greatest armor in Themysciran Amazonian history stood up to the entire army of, whatever the hell it was, Spartans or whatever,
Yeah,
some
the
ancient
army of man.
Army of man. It stood up to the entire army of man, and it's just like Cheetah's coming in, and yeah, I'm just gonna start ripping the wings off.
Yeah, Cheetah takes it apart. So okay, you're going, okay, Cheetah's a real threat.
Yeah.
She can, obviously rip through Diana like nothing. Then Diana takes her underwater.
I'll say they bring her to Cat's one biggest weakness.
Yeah, so they go underwater and they're having a fight.
Yeah.
And there's an electrical wire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I am not the brightest bulb in the box, I will admit this. But if you have water plus electricity, Diana is sitting there arguing with her and telling her, stop, you need to renounce your wish. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go here. And obviously Cheetah is saying, no, I'm not giving up. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to do whatever I got to. She winds up electrocuting Cheetah.
Yep.
Diana is wearing full armor.
Yep.
That's metal.
Yep. She's also like a demigod, so yeah.
Yeah. So basically she survives this.
Yep.
I was like...
Oh, you mean Cheetah, Barbara.
Yeah.
I mean, if she were a normal, you or I human being, oh yeah, she's done. But there ain't nothing. I would argue that while Diana's losing her power, Cheetah's gaining it a little bit. So she ain't a full demigod, but she ain't exactly normal.
Right. Like I just said, I thought for how they ended it was just too short. Like this had Iron Man 2 vibes. This had... I would say, no, I was going to say Phantom Menace, but Phantom Menace was actually drawn out longer.
Cut him some slack. It's the first comic book movie in Lord knows how long that they didn't kill the villain.
Right. But I thought how they ended the fight, I was like, really?
Yeah.
Like this, all this buildup for one, the Golden Eagle armor, and two, Cheetah, just went up in smoke.
Yeah.
And I thought this was such a bad miscue.
I'll say for all the buildup with the armor and all the promotional images and the trailers and the TV spots, and it was kind of like, okay, it's here and it's gone.
Yeah, like it was like, this is done.
Yeah.
And like it was just over so quick. There was like, how can you even say this is your main villain?
Well, that's what I felt bad for telling my dad and my girlfriend, because my dad was like, oh, he's heard of Batman, he's seen the Batman movies and Superman movies, and he's read some comics, back in his day, but nothing ever to this level. And he goes, well, what's Cheetah's big deal? I mean, what's he to her? I go, well, it's her arch nemesis. I go, it's her biggest, it's her Lex Luthor, it's her Joker, it's her Red Skull, So he's like, oh, okay. It just, for being her main big bad, it just felt like such a cop-out.
Yeah, like I say, for how they ended that underwater with electricity, it's like both of them should got electrocuted. But both survived. Okay, comics, I get it, but still.
Yeah.
But still a bad way to end that fight, especially with your main rival. So then she finally gets into where Maxwell Lord is like basically on his last legs. And he's now encompassed so much power from wishes that he's given to the entire world.
He's going slightly delirious.
He's going delirious, and it was kind of really weird about how you could do that power through the television.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, like I say, I'm willing to suspend belief.
Never specified how they had to do it.
Right, they never specified. So it's like, okay, I can take this, because all of a sudden throughout the world, everybody's wishing for something crazy. Like somebody wishes somebody was dead. Somebody wishes for nuclear weapons.
Well, it was over in England or Scotland or Ireland or somewhere over in that portion where it's like, oh, I wish all Irishmen you would go back to where they came from. And rather than him turning around and just walking out, he goes, I wish you would drop dead. And my dad and girlfriend and I all went, oh shit.
Yeah, like it was just absolutely out of control, like where they were going with it. But I understand, because you're building a hysteria. Because the one thing that they go after they dig through what the Dreamstone is about, they know it ends all civilization that is in possession of it. So they know the stakes are high. So Diana is doing what she can do. And obviously she's confronting Maxwell at the secret location, and she's trying to use a lasso of truth on him. Now, this is, I would say, almost like a letdown for me again.
Okay.
Because she's doing these long speeches while she's trying to use the lasso, because she can't get through it because Maxwell Lord is generating so much power.
Yeah.
He's in like a virtual force field, which, okay, I'm willing to deal with. And his son is still back at the company. He's at the headquarters, because all this time Maxwell Lord keeps ignoring him and pushing him to the side.
Well, in Christ, there's been a riot going on outside the offices for like half the movie at this point.
Yeah, so like during this whole thing, Washington D.C. is completely engulfed in rage.
I'll say, because at this point we should mention that one of the wishes that Maxwell Lord got the president to make was more nukes, more more nukes than them, meaning the Soviet Union. So that way they'll back down to us. They'll do this, they'll do that. Well, the Soviets saw that. The Soviets at the same time, because it takes only as much as it gives. So it gave the Soviets that many, and so it basically started. I think they even said it. Oh, the peaceful talks between the two nations are over, and then war has been declared. So Washington D.C. goes to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like this real messy ending that, okay, the stakes are exploding, and Diana is still giving these long speeches where she's like trying to talk sense into Maxwell Lord.
Sure.
Which finally the lasso of truth gets around him, and he starts having a "this is your life" moment where he's like reliving his.
Yeah, well, and I'm sitting there watching this because they're showing all the bad stuff that's happened to him over the years. Abusive parents, wetting the bed, and I'm like, are you really trying to make me feel bad for this guy?
Yeah, like they were trying to all of a sudden make him a sympathetic character when it's like the entire movie he's not been.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm not the biggest fan of when properties try to do that you spend, like, I'm watching a show right now on Netflix, Turn Washington Spies. It's set in the American Revolution. The main villain of that is gotta be one of the most and I don't mean this in a bad way, annoying villains ever. That, like, it's just one of those villains that you want to see dead in the worst way possible, but you realize they can't, because if they do, there goes your big villain. I'm really hoping they don't pull this, because it's like, okay, don't try and show flashbacks of why he's such a piece of shit. Don't try and make me feel bad for this guy, because there's no way you can do it. I don't always like when movies or shows do that.
No, they should,
because I get in some instances, yeah, you might be able to talk me into it, but you don't have to try and make me feel bad for every villain about why he's doing things.
Yeah, like it just was such a cop out to me that, like, all of a sudden you're trying to make him humanized.
Yeah.
When the entire movie he's just been nothing but greed, evil, and, well, I mean, you can say evil, I guess you can stretch it, but his intentions are not for good.
No, they're not.
So he's trying to manipulate everybody, so he winds up being the one on top. And he's doing it by any means necessary. That he's literally having people get killed off. He's hurting people. He's doing whatever to get his own gains. So how are you trying to make a sympathetic villain at this point?
Yeah.
And you can't, because how they end this is somehow the lasso of truth gets wrapped around his leg.
Yeah.
And he now suddenly comes to, he wants to be better. He wants to be a great father.
Well, I think it's kind of, he realizes what's going on, and and it's one of those, he had horse blinders on the entire movie, and it's just like, oh, I got to get to my ends. And then he realized what was going to happen, and the nukes were coming, and his son was all on his own, and he's like, holy shit, I screwed up.
Yeah, like, okay, so this moment now, suddenly he finally cares about his son.
Yeah. Which,
I get, it's a movie, but it was like, I did not like how they ended with this. Because now suddenly he relinquishes his wish, so everything he's done the entire movie is retcon. We think, because you see when all the nukes were getting fired and everything,
they explode.
They're suddenly off the radar. They're gone. You're seeing the destruction that was done by people that, depending on their wishes, is getting retconned.
Right.
You see that Barbara Minerva is now on a cliff somewhere.
I think it's still on the island.
It's still on the island, but she's still there.
She's human, though.
We think, because she never gave up her wish. So there's like all this gray area that we don't know how this ends.
See, I think she's human just because it goes back to the source. If you cut off the water from the source, it'll stop flowing. The only reason she had her powers is because of what he did at the start. So I don't think we've obviously seen the last of her being Cheetah.
Yeah.
But for right now, she's human because, well, it got undone outside of her wishes.
Yeah. So we see the Maxwell Lord now gets reunited with his son.
Yeah.
And has promised him to do better, but it's like, you are not going to get away from this one.
No.
So
I'm astounded he wasn't in prison.
Well, the thing now that I wonder is, like, did that retcon everything he did? So now nobody remembers what he did in the first place.
So they did not say that, so yeah, hard to say.
Yeah, so like there's this whole vague ending to this movie that we just don't know, and then we see Diana go back to DC, and she runs into the guy that was possessed by Steve Trevor.
Yeah.
And kind of have like this real friendly, like, maybe that's going to be my love interest for the next movie. I don't know. Like, it just ended on such a weird note. And then we get to the bonus scene.
Greatest bonus scene in history.
You want to break it down?
So, after we get to the mid-credit scene, and this is where I'm like, oh, I wonder if they're going to show anything. It's over in England or someplace, and a woman's walking down the street, and a telephone pole or light pole goes to fall down, and it almost hits a baby carriage, and a woman stops it and drops it, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, I need to thank you." Yada yada yada. Pulls the hood back, and it's Asteria, who's been secretly living among the humans, much like Diana. But who is playing Asteria, you might ask? One Linda Carter.
Yeah, I marked out.
Oh, that I did too. That was great.
I marked out for that.
That was a great bonus scene.
So, Pat, let me ask you this.
Yes.
We broke down the entire movie. What was the good, what was the bad, and what was the what?
Good was the fight scenes. Fight scenes were definitely good. Bad was just the amount of times I had to suspend disbelief. I can suspend disbelief much like anybody, but if I have to suspend disbelief every other scene, that's where then it starts to pull me out a little bit. And just kind of the WTF moments were just some of the stuff that could have been explained with like not even a 30-second added dialogue or something. Just the stuff that got left unexplained, or I had to sit there and figure out myself, which, don't get me wrong, I don't mind having to draw conclusions myself and kind of connect dots myself, but if I have to do it for what felt like a quarter of the movie, I'm not enjoying it all that much.
I have to agree. Like, I thought the fight scenes were great. Gal Gadot and the stunt team did a great job with this. I have no issues with that. I don't even have, as I joked about, the Themyscira Ninja Warrior competition to open the film with.
Yeah.
That was fine. I know that some people online have been very critical about that you had that scene and then you had the scene at the mall, the fight scene. Listen, that's not the issue. Because you want to establish what Wonder Woman's been up to and she's still a force to be reckoned with. Obviously, we're talking about young Diana, who's, I mean, I can't even remember how old she is during the Themyscira time, but she's young.
Right.
Like, I want to say, like, not even 13, I want to say.
Yeah, not even.
No, but you see now an older Diana is still doing what she does. I had no issues with the fights. None. My issues with this film, or I guess I should say, let me get back with my good stuff. Had no issues with the fight scenes, thought they were great. Pedro Pascal,
oh my God,
crushed it.
Needs a goddamn award.
As Maxwell Lord. He was great.
Yeah.
No issues with him. Thought he lived up to the 80s character he was trying to portray.
Yeah.
Because you can say he borrowed from a lot of different sources. There's been a lot of comparisons to a lot of different people throughout the 1980s history. I'm just going to leave it to your interpretation, but I thought he was excellent with it because he just oozed with charisma. He definitely captured that greed is good vibe.
Yeah.
And he definitely ran with it. I thought Chris Pine as Steve Trevor again was great in the romance story between him and Diana. Sure, it was good. I thought that the writing might have drug it out a little bit, but I had no issue with him and what he did in the movie. Yeah. And I will say this, I didn't have an issue with Kristen Wiig. I thought
she was great.
I thought she was okay in the film. Like, I thought for what she had to work with, she was great. My issues with this film, though, I thought it was very sloppy writing at times, and I'm very shocked because the writing team that was involved with this, that you had this many like loose plot holes throughout this film. You drug out these scenes where Diana is flying, and this happened multiple times where she's in the clouds, and you want to try giving this so much more of an epic moment than it needs to be. Like the story was already dictating the pace of the film. So the fact that you're drawing out this like sequences where she's in the clouds, like reevaluating everything, and like, I'm sorry, like you could have cut that out. There was no need for it. I thought they should have done a lot more details about explaining about the Dreamstone, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And I thought that could have hurt if you're not familiar with the comic and you're not familiar with how it comes across. That could definitely hurt. So I thought that was a definite problem. I thought the end fight scene between Cheetah and Wonder Woman was awful.
Yeah.
Because it was a squash.
Yeah.
Like, to put it in wrestling terms, like I was talking with Rich from 3FN about this. It was a squash match. That this was, you built up Cheetah to be the rival to Diana. And then Diana has this super armor that you mentioned 2 times in the film, how it defended the army of man, but yet Cheetah runs through it.
Yeah, and then you James Bond killer. I forget which movie it is, but he tosses the bad guy into the bathtub and then tosses the fan into the bathtub and just goes shocking.
Yeah, like there was just no point to it. Even the Cairo scene you could have taken out.
The Cairo scene, I feel you could have simplified just because, like I said, it felt like they wanted to get to the action sequence so quick that they went from, oh, he's there, oh, he does the wish with the guy, oh, he gets the oil, oh, does this, does that, and we're fighting. Yeah,
like it just seems so rushed, like they were trying to cram so much into this movie that they took away from it. And even in the ending with Maxwell Lord, like the ending I would have done would have been the one from the comics, and I alluded to this last week. I didn't want to get into any spoilers, but what I thought they should have done is what they did for the Countdown to Crisis or Infinite Crisis, where Maxwell Lord possesses Superman, I believe.
Yeah.
And Wonder Woman has to, like, she puts a lasso of truth around his neck and says, "You have to release him." And he's like, "I'm not going to release him. You're going to have to kill me." And she winds up snapping his neck in front of a whole worldwide audience because this gets broadcasted on Brother Eye.
Right.
Okay. Now, I understand they probably didn't want to go that route because of the feedback from Man of Steel.
Right. Well, and I think at the point this was filmed that they weren't back in good terms with Henry Cavill as Superman.
Right, but I think that the backlash from Superman snapping Zod's neck from Man of Steel, I think they didn't want to go that route, which, okay, you didn't have to follow it per verbatim.
No.
But the fact that you tried making Maxwell Lord into a sympathetic character after the entire time, his motivation has not been sympathy.
Well, I think the other reason that wouldn't work as well, Superman's not around at that point.
Well, that's another thing, too, for where this time is. Okay, so 1984, where is like your other heroes lurking around?
I take this as kind of like the Marvel method of like, unless otherwise specified, it takes place in present times. So, you know, Superman doesn't show up until whatever year that movie came out.
Right.
You know, I kind of take it with the Marvel method of like, as they've said, unless otherwise specified, it takes place in the year it comes out. So at that point, you know, age-wise, Bruce is however old Bruce is. You know, Clark, might be a kid in Smallville at this point. You know, I think it's like that.
Yeah, I mean, okay, sure, you can have that argument, but I guess I kind of looked at it as like, okay, yet again, Wonder Woman disappears from the radar after this.
Right.
Like, you could have written this segment out that she did something to Maxwell Lord and then had to disappear.
Sure.
And almost kind of like the ending of The Dark Knight, where Batman is framed for
Harvey
Dent's death.
Yeah.
And he has to escape from the law.
Yeah.
Like, you could have done something like that.
Yeah.
And I think you would have told a stronger story
Yeah.
than you did. Because this, I understand you're trying to copy the 80s, and I get that. But this was sloppy writing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I thought your pacing for the film, too,
off
was all over the place.
Yeah.
And for a movie that really needed to deliver home about this, I thought they dropped the ball. I really did. Like, do I say it's a bad movie?
No.
I wouldn't say necessarily bad.
It's okay.
It's okay. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen.
It's an okay movie. It's one that, on occasion, if I'm ever feeling, you know, an inkling to watch it, or, you know, kind of an urge to watch it, I might. But I'm not exactly going to go out of my way and go, oh, I need to rewatch this again.
Yeah, like, I just think that this movie could have been better. It should have been.
Yeah.
I understand that it's been greenlit for Wonder Woman 3.
Yeah, so Warner Brothers announced that just, what was it, yesterday, or I believe.
Yes.
Where Warner Brothers chairman Toby Emmerich announced the news following the, quote, strong opening weekend performance of Wonder Woman 1984 that saw the film earn $16.7 million from 2,100 North American theaters, alongside also being available on HBO Max. Globally, Wonder Woman 1984 brought in $36.1 million from 42 markets over the weekend, bringing the worldwide tally to $85 million. Furthermore, it was the top post-pandemic domestic opening weekend for any feature film this year. Also for HBO Max, according to the folks over at HBO Max, nearly half of all subscribers to the service watched Wonder Woman 1984 on its launch day, alongside millions of wholesale subscribers who have access to HBO Max via a cable, wireless, or other partner services. So I don't know what the exact numbers are, but half of HBO Max subscribers watch this thing on the day of.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was crashing for me, so like I started up a couple times. But like I say, for what it was supposed to deliver, I thought it did an okay job. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't think that it did as well as it should have been.
Yeah.
That I think that they should have maybe tightened up the story a bit. I understand you want to try getting as much stuff as you can into a movie. I get that.
Oh, yeah.
And especially for how well Wonder Woman 2017 did. I thought that, okay, the third act in that movie definitely drug out. I had the same vibe during this one, because it just seems that during those last fight scenes, Diana is trying to give these like big, inspiring speeches.
Yeah, almost like a Return of the King with Theoden.
Yeah, like, and it's just, you don't need to do that so much. I think that took away from it, because it just seemed like you're trying to cram so much into this movie. And granted, I know it's 2.5 hours. you could have taken 45 minutes out of this thing and told the same story.
Diana can give inspiring speeches that don't have to be long and in multiple sentences. I mean, just look back at the first movie where she wants to go help the people across the no man's land and save the town. And Steve Trevor explains to her what's going on and this and that. And he's like, we can't do that, blah, 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 blah. She then turns around and takes off the jacket and puts on her thing. And she goes, and I forget the exact line she says, but it's like one sentence, and then she gets up, and I just remember sitting in the theater going, holy shit, and the hair stood up on my arm.
Yeah, you could have quick moments like that still work. You don't need to give these long, drawn-out monologues. Because honestly, at this point, I think that they didn't give Wonder Woman that much great material to even work with. I think that Gal Gadot definitely did a great job with the role.
Yeah, she did the best with what she had.
Yeah, but I think that they spent way too much time trying to emphasize the romance angle, and then the man out of time with Steve Trevor. They really kind of took away from where the story was going to go.
See, they did, but I feel like at the same token, though, they didn't dwell on that too much.
They didn't dwell, but I think
there was like maybe one or two scenes where it was like, wait, what is this? And then they moved on.
Yeah, but I thought they spent a lot of the bulk of the beginning of the movie trying to reestablish that.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, okay, we could have tightened this up a little better. But I mean, that's sort of my overall pickaways from it, that I'm like, the writing I thought could have been a lot better. I thought they drug it out. And then how you end it is, okay, well, what happens between now, 1984, and Batman vs. Superman, where Wonder Woman makes her grand reintroduction to the DCEU? Because in Justice League, she's walking around with no problem.
Right.
So why all of a sudden is she going to go from, I'm smashing security cameras, I don't want to be caught on film, to now you're completely cool with just being in front of the public? It's just little stuff like that just, I thought, took away so much that it's still a watchable movie, but I thought for where it should have been, it definitely was lacking.
I also got to say, I prefer the original theme song to this one.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Hans Zimmer, fantastic composer, but I prefer the, from Wonder Woman 1 and then Batman v Superman, the guitar riff theme to what they did in this movie. It was okay, but I prefer the other one.
Yeah, like I think, in closing, Wonder Woman 1984 is a watchable movie, sure.
Yeah.
But I think you have to go in with lower expectations, and you have to make your own judgments for it. Because I know a lot of people have really loved this, and really loved how they focused on the inspiration and the hope that Diana was giving. But me personally, I just did not feel that with the writing. I really didn't. And I thought that they completely rushed through building up Barbara Minerva as her main rival, as Cheetah, who, if you know anything about Wonder Woman in the comics, that is her number one villain.
Oh, yeah.
That is the one. I mean,
multiple iterations, too.
Yeah, multiple iterations, but it still comes back to Cheetah has always been her most historic rival. That is her Joker. That is, when you break down everything that makes Wonder Woman, Cheetah is the one that balances it out. And I thought they did a very lackluster job of establishing that. I think, and I take nothing away from Kristen Wiig. I don't want this coming in on her, because I thought for what she had to work with, she definitely did a better job than I thought.
Especially considering seeing as the only stuff I've ever seen her in is comedies.
Exactly.
The fact that she's for me at least, been a comedy actor, and she does comedies and slapstick and stuff like that. She did a very great job.
Yeah, I thought she did a great job. And I thought Pedro Pascal definitely was strong as a villain. And especially,
God, he crushed it.
And especially, I will say this, for balancing two villains out, I thought they did a good job with it. Because usually that is a tough thing to pull.
Yes.
But I thought for overall, they didn't do a good job about pacing and dialogue even too, and how the story went. I thought they did too much jumping around. It was just so much they wanted to add here that this would have been fine for a director's cut, but it shouldn't have been the main movie.
No, and like I said, taking an hour into the film to really get the story going really hurt it.
Yeah, I agree too. I was already ready to tune out, to be honest with you. I'm like, where are we going here? And that is not something I should feel with this. Because they did such a great job with the first one. This one was a step back, in my opinion. And I have no issue talking about this. If you love this movie, great. I'm not saying you shouldn't, because like I say, I know a lot of people really enjoy this for what it was. This is summer blockbuster action.
Yeah.
This is what it should have been when it gets to the big screen. And don't doubt when movie theaters are reopened around the world that this doesn't get a re-release.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
It's going to, because it's only going to be on HBO Max for 30 days, and then it's gone.
Yep.
But during that time, you can watch it and you can pick it apart. I just think that for where they should have gone with this, it should have been tighter in script and in pacing. That's my two biggest things that really drove me nuts watching this film.
I'm just glad we got through a comic movie and they didn't kill the villain off.
Oh, I am too.
That's a rarity.
But now it's like, where do you go from here? That's going to be the question we're going to have to see for Wonder Woman 3.
That is true, and I know they've said it. Well, of course, these quotes were from before they confirmed it, but they said if we do a third one, it'd be set in modern times.
Yeah, which I think is a right move to do, and I think you're going to have Wonder Woman versus Cheetah, and I think you're going to follow the comics about how Cheetah gets her powers.
Right.
Because it's definitely in from a Dreamstone. It's a very good story if they really want to go that route. And then however the story is going to play after that is anybody's guess. But definitely some stuff to work on going into Wonder Woman 3. But we're talking Wonder Woman 84 here on the ODPH. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. The movie has dropped. You have seen it. What is your reaction? You've heard our takes, but we want to hear yours. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
In a world of utter randomness, one podcast stood out from the bunch. And it was The Amazing World of Talking Shiz.
Sorry, I had to clear my throat there. Yeah, it's just mainly randomness.
And focus is
It's definitely
not being
not there.
focused on at all.
No, our podcast is definitely no theme at all. It's literally random and talk about literally everything and throwing in random jokes at any given time.
We're on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. So go ahead, tune in. New episodes weekly.
And we're international.
International.
Very,
Yes.
very well. So tune in. Follow us on Twitter. See you there.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Cito, a local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
We knew right where we'd be, floating on the airwaves you see. It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward and no steps back. We knew right where we'd be.
Coming back for the second segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and is the year-end Parlay Awards.
Uh-huh.
Now, we haven't done the parlays in a while, but we figured with 2020 finally kicking dust and going away forever.
Assuming there's no December 32nd.
Yes.
Good Lord.
Don't jinx anything, man. This year has been so wild. We thought we'd send it out with a little bit of style, so to speak, and we give out our awards for what we thought was the best movie, TV, comics, and more that we have talked about on the ODPH podcast for the past 12 months. So that being said, these are nominations for Movie of the Year based on what we have discussed on the show. And our nominations are Birds of Prey, Bloodshot, and Wonder Woman 1984. So, Pat, is there a pick out here that stands out to you?
I'd have to say out of the 3 Birds of Prey, it was the last one I actually saw in theaters. I didn't get the chance to see Bloodshot just because I wasn't really interested in seeing it. And then with Wonder Woman 84, between Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman 84, I enjoy both of them, but I think I enjoyed Birds of Prey just a little bit more.
I have to agree. Out of the movies that we just discussed, Birds of Prey, love it or hate it.
It was fun.
It was fun. It was a very good comic adaptation, so to speak. They borrowed a lot from the books, and this is probably the closest you have seen to a comic book Harley Quinn movie.
It was also filled with a lot of adult humor that I really enjoy.
Yeah, which is something that you should definitely be excited about. I know that this came off with a lot of
Mixed expectations?
Yeah, mixed expectations is probably the best way to describe it. For me, I was excited to see what we're going to get. I know the name when it was first announced was absolutely a train wreck. The Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn.
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
Which is a mouthful, and I understand they want to try being something different.
Sure.
But once you get down to Margot Robbie returning to her role as Harley Quinn, it definitely captured a little imagination that this had sort of a Deadpool vibe to it because it was definitely not for kids.
No.
And definitely introduced a Birds of Prey team that we haven't seen before, with Rosie Perez playing Renee Montoya, Mary Elizabeth Winstead playing the Huntress, and Journey Smollett playing Black Canary, with their foil being one Ewan McGregor.
Oh my God,
playing the Black Mask.
Great casting. It's a goddamn shame they killed him off though.
Absolutely. No, this movie definitely was a fun watch.
Yeah.
And we said we knew there was going to be a lot of backlash with this.
Yeah.
But this was one that when this came out was a big surprise to all of us.
Yeah.
And I figured that this would have been a good direction for where the DCEU was heading.
Yeah.
That they're focusing on the characters more so than the actual shared universe
Yeah.
a la Marvel.
Yeah.
Which I had no problem with. I thought this was fun. I thought this was, like I say, probably one of the most closest to an actual live-action Harley Quinn movies we'll ever really see.
Yeah. No, yeah, it definitely made sense. I mean, and I hope that's what they go with going forward, that, you know, they don't have to follow the Marvel method of being kid-friendly and cookie-cutter and happy-go-lucky. You can do it in a darker side. You can do an edgier side to this. You can have your movies that are PG-13. You know, that's fine. But you can kind of dwell or push that border where it's like, okay, this is a borderline R movie, but it's still PG-13. Like, go a little edgier. Go a little darker. People will still see it.
Yeah, because like I say, when I'm saying this is a live-action Harley Quinn movie, if you've ever read the comics,
Yeah.
it's a lot different.
Yeah, it's a lot different than if you've only ever seen her in the animated show.
Exactly, because if you only know her from Batman the Animated Series, the comics are a lot different.
Yeah.
And like I say, this is the perfect interpretation of her
Yeah.
in live action. So
Yeah.
like I say, this is the closest we'll see to the comics, which I love seeing.
Ewan McGregor crushed it.
Yeah, this had so much wind to it.
And I'm not saying that as a Star Wars fan.
No, definitely not. I have to agree with you. This is definitely not something we would say, you know, just with a little bias. But this movie definitely delivered on all fronts. And I think that it's definitely one that is very polarizing with fans. But
Yeah.
you have to really take into context with just how authentic Harley Quinn was and where the direction the DCEU was going.
Yeah.
Bloodshot is up there just because I saw it, and it was obviously based off the Valiant comic
Right.
hero, and
Right.
the fact we're going to get a sequel is still kind of mind-blowing, but you know what? I'm not mad about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just waiting to see whatever direction they're going to go with it. And then obviously we were just discussing Wonder Woman 84 last segment, so I don't want to go deep diving into that. But Birds of Prey is our pick for that.
Yep.
And now, Pat, let me ask you this. What was the movie moment of the year for you?
I would have to, and this might surprise you, but I might have to say Justice League Snyder Cut getting announced. That for a lot of years, I thought that would never happen. That there was, just because as messy as that was and all the behind-the-scenes stuff that was rumored and supposedly happened, I thought there was no way that was ever going to happen. That they had moved on from it, that it's in the rearview mirror. Let's not dwell on it. Let's move past it. So when that finally got announced, I got to admit, I was very surprised, and I did not think that would ever happen. I figured if it ever happened, it might be like 20, 25 years down the road when you know the pot has simmered down. It's not exactly overfilling and boiling over. You know, that things are kind of tempered down, and they're like, oh, hey, remember this? Here you go.
Yeah, I have to agree. That's up there with me. But for my pick for movie moment of the year, has to be Warner Brothers announcing the whole 2021 slate going to HBO Max first. Because obviously we are dealing with very unprecedented times.
Yeah.
That we have to adapt to a lot of change.
Uh-huh.
Hearing their entire slate is coming to HBO Max is game-changing.
I figured somebody would do something at some point. Maybe not their entire slate.
Yeah.
But a couple of movies, I just wasn't sure who it was going to be. It was just I figured somebody would do something, you know, maybe like a Sony go to a Netflix type of deal where it's like X, Y, you know, 2 big tentpole movies and then maybe 2 or 3 smaller ones that'll do well might go there. But if I at no point ever thought, oh yeah, no, a movie studio like a Disney, like a Fox, like a Warner Brothers is going to put their entire slate on their streaming service for free next year. No, never considered that.
No, this is absolutely mind-blowing in the fact that we don't know where the future is going to hold for 2021, but the fact the entire slate is coming out, win, lose, or draw. I mean, they can obviously retcon it if things get better, and I'm hoping they do.
I don't think they can. That, you know, Pandora's box is open on that one.
Yeah.
At least with next year. I think that's one that that door is open. There's no way they can shut that door for next year because I feel like they might be opening themselves up to some class action lawsuits if they do. But if you know, when things get better, I don't think they'll do it after 2021.
No, I think not. I think the movie theaters are back open, and hopefully that's sooner than later.
Listen, it's a good thing. If theaters are open here by the time Godzilla vs. King Kong comes out, I can fully go watch it in theaters, go home and watch it again, and I'm all goddamn for that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, too. I won't be mad about that, but we just got to kind of wait and see what happens in the world. But for right now, it was such a game-changing moment to do, and especially coming off the heels of Mulan coming to Disney+.
Yeah.
And that was a very mixed reaction of how that was.
Yeah.
More negative than positive, in my opinion. So
yeah, I know. I haven't seen. I've seen almost all of the Disney live action remakes. The only one I don't, and this is just trying to remember them off the top of my head. The only one I don't think I've seen, and that's just because I never got around to it, was the Beauty and the Beast remake. Don't get me wrong, I like all of the people in that movie, but I just haven't gotten around to seeing it.
Right.
This was one that I was just like, I had such fond memories of the animated version that came out in 1999, I believe it was. You know, my grandmother took my brother and sister and I to go see it in theaters here locally when we were kids. And I that was one that was on a regular rotation when we were growing up. You know, once it hit VHS, you know, so that was one that I was just like, I don't know if I want to do this. It sounds like I dodged a bullet.
Yeah, I would say so too.
Yeah.
So let us switch gears to television.
Sure.
Now we have covered a lot of TV on here, and we've been very lucky to do so.
Yeah.
So some of the shows that are up for contention: Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Swan Song.
Yep.
The Boys from Amazon Prime.
Nobody cares about that.
Oh, you bite your tongue. The Umbrella Academy, Season 2.
Yeah.
Doom Patrol.
Yep.
And the one that I think has been the unanimous pick from us for TV show of the year, The Mandalorian Season 2.
Absolutely. Although for me it's like a 1A, 1B type of thing, because I definitely got to put Umbrella Academy up there with it. But Mandalorian is absolutely number one, just leaps and bounds far and away. Umbrella Academy is kind of like a 1A just because it's so good. And then I got to say 1B, it would have to be, and even though I know I came out last year, but I've rewatched it since Witcher.
Yeah.
Just so much great TV this year. You know, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Swan Song, getting its Swan Song was awesome. But no, Mandalorian, so damn good.
See, for me, it's Mandalorian.
Sure.
But 1B is The Boys.
That's fair.
And I
That's fair.
freaking love that show. It just because when you can take an indie comic and bring it to life, and you don't have a studio or network saying you can't do this, you can follow it more or less to the letter. You really capture the voice of the artist and the writer and what they portrayed on the pages. The Boys does that in its sleep. Carl Urban is so amazing in his role. And Anthony Starr, too, as Homelander. Man, you cannot get any better than those two on this, by far and away. But it has to go to The Mandalorian, though. And I know it's been short season. I know that we're talking, obviously, recent. But for what they did, it just lives up to the expectations of what you want. Pedro Pascal definitely has this unique charisma, being in a whole bodysuit for 8 episodes. And then this is the fandom that has definitely reignited the Star Wars fan base, reignited pop culture. Because when it first came out, the story about Baby Yoda and the bounty hunter protecting him, we weren't sure how this is going to play out.
Sure.
But once we start getting into every episode, it delivers strong on every episode.
Right, I mean, because you think back to all of the movies have been around some of the central characters. I mean, you look at the Clone Wars movie, still featured some of the central characters of the prequel movies. You know, and then you even go into Rogue One, it's tied in very heavily to the original film, A New Hope. Solo featured Han Solo, you know. So all of these films and all of these properties that have come out have very heavily, even into the books and comics, you know, have very heavily featured some of the main established characters because, hey, we know what sells, we know what works, we know what people want to see, and that's the main characters. So when they first announced this, it's kind of like, oh, hey, we're doing a Star Wars TV show. You know, it's set, you know, after the Empire's fallen, and it's going to feature a bounty hunter Mandalorian, but it's not the one you're thinking of, and it's a brand new character. There was a lot of people that went, okay, this might be good, but I got to see a trailer first.
Yeah, but for what they delivered, and obviously reigniting the fan base with Boba Fett's return.
Oh, yeah.
You have Ahsoka Tano making her live-action debut. Bo-Katan making the debut. And then you have arguably the moment of the year, because I think we're in unanimous decision. Mandalorian got it. This was also the TV moment of the year.
Yep.
Mark Hamill reprising his role as Luke Skywalker.
If you want to have a real fun time and get the biggest, like, kid grin on your face, go to YouTube, and search Luke Skywalker Mandalorian reaction and just watch the reaction videos.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to see. I just watched one the other day where there was an older woman, I'd say she's maybe about mid to late 50s or so, that grew up watching the movies and showed them to her kids, but hadn't kept up with them in a while, and for one reason or another, that her son was showing her the scene. And she's just losing her goddamn mind. And it's just so much fun to watch all the reaction videos.
Oh, yeah, because it was such a surprise. And in this day and age, to have to have something like that, you think about it, The Mandalorian has pulled this off twice.
Oh, yeah. Well, the first one was a very big feat because we know they delayed any merchandise with the child, Baby Yoda, for like a year. So that way nothing, because let's face it, that's how the Avengers time travel suits leaked out, was toy leaks.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of stuff leaks out a lot of times. So how do you prevent that? Don't put out any merchandise. But this one I feel was easier to pull off. Probably had, and I don't know for sure, but probably had a real small crew. Only those who needed to be there. Only those who needed to know knew. And let's face it, you didn't really even have to delay merchandise for this by a year. Merchandise has been coming out of him in that costume since 1983.
Yeah.
So any fans online who are looking for the latest Star Wars toys on Amazon or eBay or whatever are going to see 2020, Luke Skywalker in all black figure and go, oh, okay, that's just a new version of the one from Return of the Jedi. Whatever. They're not going to think anything of it.
Yeah, absolutely. They did this so crushingly well. I mean, and you want to talk about great rivals, too. I mean, the boys had Carl Urban versus Anthony Starr.
Yeah.
You had Pedro Pascal versus Giancarlo Esposito.
Oh, Giancarlo Esposito's having a great year, too.
Yeah, he's having a phenomenal year, but Pedro Pascal, I think, is won 2020.
Absolutely. Like I said, if he doesn't get an award for something this year, it's a crime.
Yeah, he's definitely earned it. He's definitely been completely on point in every role he's taken. I mean, so is Giancarlo, so you can't argue either way.
Yeah.
But for TV and what they brought to the table, The Mandalorian set that bar so high.
Also, speaking of Giancarlo Esposito, slight divergent. But if Marvel wants to cast him in anything, I did see him as fan art of Old Man Miles Morales.
Okay.
And I saw this. I'll have to show you, dig it up and show you. But yeah, that would work if you want to put him in Marvel movies.
Well, that's the big rumor that he is coming to the House of M, so to speak.
Oh.
Not literally, because I don't want to get everybody saying that I heard something about House of M getting made. But he is rumored heavily to be coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And if you believe Vegas odds, it's Doctor Doom.
Ooh, interesting.
So I'm not putting a lot of stock into it. We do locks and leaps. I lock that he's going to be a part of the MCU in some way, shape, or form.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if he's necessarily going to be Doctor Doom, though. But I'm not sure exactly until we start hearing some some casting announcements for Fantastic Four.
Sure.
What to expect, but he'd be great in whatever role he plays.
Absolutely.
I want to say though, I just don't think he's going to be Doctor Doom. I could see him being another villain, or I could even see him being Professor X too.
Oh, he'd be good as Professor X.
Yes, because he's always been a bad guy and he does such a great job as it. Then why not let him be the head of the X universe? Mm-hmm. I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
So that being said, we got a lot of streaming services that we definitely have to give some acknowledgement to.
Sure.
So obviously Disney Plus had a great year.
Absolutely.
Mandalorian will carry it through, and then what they have lined up for 2021, which we'll get into next week, is out of this world. Netflix had a strong year.
Yep.
Amazon Prime, which I think had a great con season, and a lot of their shows they came out with too have been very exciting, and they have a lot of stuff lined up for next year as well.
Yeah.
Hulu definitely made its mark too, and they got a bunch of projects coming out as well.
Yep.
And then lastly, HBO Max has made some waves. And we know this because they finally, after all this time, and thanks to Padawan J, Roku finally got on the ball.
Yep.
And got that service added to their. They have finally introduced new programming.
Yeah, about damn time.
Yeah, which I think won't give them a parlay this year for.
No.
But I think next year they'll
waiting 6+ months to put something new on the service doesn't get you an award.
No, definitely not. But Pat, let me ask you, who gets the parlay for best streaming service?
I'd have to say Disney Plus. If I had to order it, it'd probably be Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, and then Amazon Prime. Just because I don't have Amazon Prime, so I don't really watch anything on there. But Disney Plus just continuing to add great content. More like they added over the course of the year all of the X-Men movies. Well, all except for Logan, because obviously. And then Dark Phoenix and then First Class, not First Class. What was the last one that just came out? Whatever it was. But they added, the X-Men 1, X-Men 2, X-Men 3, the Wolverine movies. I know the Wolverine isn't on there, but it's coming back in January. But they added the X-Men movies. They've added so much good stuff, and it just continues to be the greatest bang for your buck in terms of you get literally. It ain't this bullshit, revolving door like HBO Max likes to do, where it's like, oh hey, yeah, we're gonna pull all of this stuff that we own off of the service, and you're gonna have to wait, however many months for it to come back. No, it's like, hey, it's there. You ain't got to worry about it unless something weird happens with, streaming rights. But Disney Plus just continues to be big bang for your buck. Netflix, I think I have to put number 2 just because of the adaptation. They got their own great original content, don't get me wrong. Orange is the New Black, House of Cards, Knights of Sidonia, the anime series. They got a lot of their great own original content, but just some of the adaptations. Umbrella Academy, like we mentioned. Last Kingdom, one of my favorite shows. Witcher. They've just got so many great adaptation shows that it benefits them, where they hurt a little bit in there's a lot of weird stuff added there that you've never heard of when you're just trying to find something big that you missed.
Right.
Get added to it. Hulu, I have to put number 3 just because of what they got. I've got the Hulu Live login thanks to my sister, so I get to catch a lot of stuff that I might have missed or whatnot. So that's really cool to add on. HBO Max, it's good, just for the back catalog of stuff and the movies they got all on there. But the fact that I could, for 200 whatever days it was, I could only watch it on my PlayStation or my parents' smart TV if I was at their house was a real pain in the ass. The fact that you took 200 plus days to get your head out of your ass and get onto Roku and Amazon Fire Stick really hurt you. And like I said, waiting that long to put more original content on there really hurt you too.
I have to agree. I think that Disney Plus definitely was the streaming service this year. I think for all the original programming that you get, obviously we've talked in detail about The Mandalorian, but Marvel 616 has been phenomenal, and I think is very, very slept on.
Oh, Christ, they had Clone Wars Season 7, too.
Yeah. There is a lot that they add on Disney Plus, but for the bang for the buck, as Pat touched upon, nobody came close.
No.
And for what they have lined up next year.
Holy shit.
Like, that's the one thing that I know you're saying, well, how can you give an award for something that's coming next year? They've set the precedent for how other streaming services need to run.
Uh-huh.
Because for everything they've added, how they've structured it, by doing the weekly shows.
Oh, yeah.
They haven't done the binge a la Netflix.
Right.
They have really set the pace that everybody else is trying to follow. So that's why I say they get the parlay this year for it.
And I know it's going up in price a little bit in some places around the world. It might be here by
March.
By like $1 or $2.
Yeah, it's by March. It's $1.
But I feel like I'm stealing stuff at this point, just because it's literally almost the entire Disney library.
Yeah.
Animated, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, you name it. It's probably there. I feel like for what I'm paying now, I'm stealing stuff. It's a crime.
I agree with you too. But for everything that Disney Plus has done, they're the benchmark.
Yeah.
Everybody else is trying to catch up to it. Amazon Prime, I would give number 2.
Okay.
Because they have got a lot of sleeper shows that came out. I know Utopia came out and has unfortunately been canceled, but that was actually very good. Very different, though. Very acquired taste. They've had so much original programming come out that is now making noise.
Yeah.
And now is going to get them even more buzz going into the next year.
Sure.
That I think that they definitely take number 2. Netflix has been great as well.
Oh, yeah.
That obviously Umbrella Academy 2 has been a great season.
Yep.
We really like that a lot. Extraction.
Oh, okay.
With Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that movie was...
Might be turning into a shared universe, I believe.
I don't even know how you do that. Like, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, that film was just straight up out of the pages of The Expendables.
Yeah.
And it's just nonstop, just absolutely wild action.
I can't remember if it was this year or last year, but they got with Triple Frontier with Ben Affleck. That's a great movie, too.
Yeah, I mean, they had so much that came out that didn't really make a ton of noise, but it made enough that, Netflix is still the originator of the streaming service, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I think Disney Plus has overpassed them.
Yes.
But it's not by much. And Netflix just is going to have so much different stuff coming out, too, that we don't even know about yet.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're not going away quietly. Like, I don't want to think anybody's saying that they've completely given up on taking the crown of streaming services by any means.
No, they're not taking this line down.
No, they're not. Hulu definitely has got some stuff lined up. I know from all the stuff we talked about at New York Comic Con this year, they've got a very big year coming out. And HBO Max, like I say, now that they have original programming coming out,
yeah,
this is where you can start benchmarking them against the Disney Pluses, against the Netflix, against the Amazon Primes. You can't do it until then. And obviously with how they've been having shows and losing shows and re-upping.
Right.
It seems that now they're starting to get into that moment where they're getting level. It's kind of like if you're on a boat.
Yeah.
You're going up and down
Yeah,
in
yeah,
waves.
yeah.
It's now finally leveling off, so it's going to be smooth sailing.
Yeah.
In theory. But for everything they have coming, and that's the whole Warner Brothers movie slate, that's a huge incentive for them. That if you're not on HBO Max now, I mean, really, what are you waiting for at this stage? I don't know. But we'll have to see what they have coming up next year. But for right now, Disney is still king of the streaming services. Flipping to comics.
Yep.
Now, I have to put an asterisk by this.
Okay.
Because I'm probably going to get a little message that I shouldn't be saying, but I'm actually going to be co-hosting the year-end edition of Cheers to Comics
Ooh.
with Brian Wayne, and he's giving out the year-end awards. Did it last year with him. It was a great episode, and we're going to do it again this year. So my picks for comics of the year might shift a little bit between now and then.
Sure.
But for me, I thought Marvel had a good year. I thought DC had a strong year as well. I think that James Tynan's run on Batman has been what everybody's been talking about.
Yeah.
I think on the flip side, for Marvel, you've been reading a lot of Amazing Spider-Man.
Holy shit, the things Nick Spencer is doing are good God.
Yeah, it has been great too.
If you're not reading that run, you need to.
Yeah, I agree. I've been catching up on it since I just signed up for Marvel Unlimited. It's been just excellent writing, and I've definitely been into it. I've also been digging Marauders. I've been talking about that. That and X-Force have been my two big X-Men title books this year.
Yeah.
That I'm fully engulfed with. And I'm really interested to see where we're going in the future with how Hickman's story is weaving, because we're just getting out of X of Swords, and then the Reign of X is coming. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is, happening with Marvel, and it's been a very strong year of comics. So that's what really stuck out with me. I know we'll definitely deep dive into a little more on Cheers to Comics, which I believe the episode is going to come out next week.
Okay.
But it's something to stay in time for. But definitely, it's been a strong year for comics overall, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even for me, like I mentioned, the Nick Spencer Amazing Spider-Man run has been nothing short of mind-blowing. Seriously, read it. It's nuts, the envelope he's pushing with that story right now. Charles Soule Darth Vader run, just where they're going with it is so far and away more than what I thought they'd go with it. And then I got more into Batman this year than I have in probably 20 plus years, where Batman was my guy back in the 90s with the animated series, and then Superman the animated series came along, and that was the end of that. But just getting into everything going on with the Batman comic and then Detective Comics, that has been a very nice surprise, and just how great that run has been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been so much wind that's been going on, and obviously the whole pandemic year is definitely throwing everything off, but comics have been a very good staple to get a little escapism. And, there's so many different ways you can go with books, too. I mean, Daredevil has also been great, too.
Yeah.
So, a lot that you can digest. So, I mean, I'm going to reserve our parlay for that until after the Cheersies.
Okay.
So, we'll definitely have to say that. And especially, I mean, there's so much we can even talk about next year, too. Tom Taylor had a great year, and I still can't get over the fact he's taken over Nightwing. Like, I am so freaking excited about that book. Don't even want to spoil that too much. But that's for another time. So, the parlay for comics, though, if we have to give one, I think we'll call it a draw between Spider-Man and Batman this year.
Sure.
So let's go to the comic moment of the year. Now, this one I think is going to tie into the final award too, and that's Con of the Year.
Okay.
Because for me, the comic moment of the year had to be DC fandom.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I think for what DC Comics did and starting their own Comic-Con, they didn't do San Diego this year.
No.
They definitely unloaded a 24-hour window of news. And they didn't hold back.
No.
We're talking trailers. We're talking video games. We're talking everything under the sun that was DC. So much so that they originally changed up the slate.
Yeah.
And bumped everything else to a later date.
Well, it was like a month later.
It was a month. Yeah, it was a month later because I want to say it was August 22nd and September 15th,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, I would say, my moment of the year because for what they did, and I'm not taking a shot at San Diego about this, but they definitely were leading the charge for how Comic-Con should be done in the pandemic. I know San Diego was the first one to come out when everything shut down. I'm not taking a slight away from it because you know what, they gave us content.
Yeah.
And obviously DC saw what they did and decided to go a different route and improve on those. And then even New York Comic Con, when they came out later in the year, definitely improved on that as well.
Yeah.
But for me, DC fandom was dead.
My comic moment of the year probably had to be Batman Catwoman comic finally coming out and finally getting the Phantasm introduced into the comic lore. I have loved that. In fact, that movie just its whatever anniversary was just like a day or two ago.
Yeah.
That I have loved that movie for the better part of 20 or whatever years it's been now, and the fact that the Phantasm, because that's such a great story, top from start to finish. It is probably the most adult animated story you will see that's not like specifically written like a Black Label thing. Because I know some of the later Justice League, especially the last Justice League movie, Justice League Dark movie that came out. Good God Almighty,
Yeah.
that's adult. But just in terms of being like, it's something that it's geared towards kids, but it's also a little darker for the adults. That story and just Andrea Beaumont getting introduced and just that whole story of he fell in love with her and was ready to give up the role of Batman to spoiler alert, but it's 20 some odd years ago. Ready to give up the role of Batman to marry her and this and that. The fact that like they didn't take elements of that story and weave them into the mythos, I felt was a missed opportunity. But the fact that they're taking the time now to go, hey, we finally recognize how great that story is and how great that movie is, and we're going to bring it into the comics, got me real happy.
Yeah, Tom King's run has been very... I think it's very good.
Yeah.
I know that I've had some discussions with people about this, and it varies between conversations. But for me, I thought what Tom did in bringing... I think he's written about every single Batman villain possible and introduced, I think, a couple new ones along the way. Obviously, having that run almost 100 issues,
Yeah.
since he took over the role from Snyder and Capullo. He's definitely carved his own niche with it. I think, like I said, a lot of it was...
Had a lot of Stones killing Alfred.
Yeah, that was a ballsy move. And, I mean, I'm just waiting for it to get retconned.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah, you know it's going to happen. Batman's going to do something weird in, comics. But still, the fact of what he's done there... Definitely, I thought was an interesting take, and then where he's gone, bringing Phantasm in finally.
Yeah, fucking finally.
Yeah, I mean, just to have the stones to do that, I mean, you gotta give a tip of the cap to him. So
Yeah.
definitely going to be, like I said, 2020 was an exciting year, and then 2021, the stuff that we've heard coming down is going to be definitely enticing as well. So much win to have here. But that was our picks for the parlays for 2020. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let's have that discussion. What was your favorites in movie, TV, comics, and more? Is there a category we didn't discuss on here? That's the question we're posing to you, ODPH Society. So hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Chris,
And Lance.
asking you to check out our new podcast, Comic Book Keepers.
Join us as we delve deep into comic lore to uncover the history behind a wide variety of comic book characters.
Each episode will feature one hero, villain, team, or ensemble, and break down what makes these heroes super.
We'll give you recommendations on what storylines to read,
Explain how characters were created.
discuss adaptations, costumes, and answer comic fandom's what-if questions.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, these conversations can get pretty nerdy.
This is Comic Book Keepers.
This is Rich, the host of the Three Fat Nerds podcast and co-host of the Horror Zone 607 podcast, and you are listening to our hashtag 607 podcast brothers, the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. Now kick it back over to Ken Moneybags and the crew.
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and time to talk those one-shots, Pad.
Got to talk a couple things to talk about. We've got a rather interesting quote, comment, whatever you want to say, from the DC Films president, Walter Hamada, who did an interview with the New York Times. And that is in regards to some potential movies, I guess you could say, involving the DC universe that could be made exclusively for HBO Max. So, of course, as we all know, Wonder Woman 1984 came out over the weekend, and it's doing very well. As we said in the first segment, half of all HBO Max subscribers watched it on the first day. But so now with some of these other movies coming down the pike that we know or have been rumored or talked about, like Batgirl, Static Shock, what are the potential of those being HBO Max exclusives? So the head of DC Films, that being, like I mentioned, Walter Hamada, or where is the name? Yep, there it is, Walter Hamada, specifically pointed, like I said, to Batgirl and Static Shock as two properties with strong potential to become HBO Max exclusives. These movies will still have some connections to DC's live-action cinematic multiverse, but the shift to HBO Max would allow for smaller budgets or less traditional forms of storytelling. Quote, with every movie that we're looking at now, we are thinking, what's the potential Max spinoff? Hamada told the New York Times. As we all know, originally Joss Whedon was attached to write and direct Batgirl movie, but he dropped out in February 2018 after he wasn't able to really crack out the story. So that's been going through some stuff. I know that I mentioned back what DC Fandom that they were going to work on a Static Shock movie or something like that.
Yeah.
So it appears that they're still going to be going through with some of these films, but just the ones that aren't necessarily guaranteed home runs out of the park that they know are going to do super strongly well, they're going to put out on HBO Max as exclusives.
I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
If they want to follow suit what Disney Plus is doing with Marvel, okay, I'm fine with it. As long as the films are quality,
yeah,
I'm okay. Like, I just don't want them to do, try doing a shared universe.
Yeah.
Like, make the story stand out, make the characters really mean something.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it. Like, you don't need to have everything hit the box office. And if you want to test it out there and then come out with a sequel on a box office, sure. I'm cool with that, too.
Yeah, no, so that'll be something to check out. Sticking with kind of the Warner Media family, I guess you could say. I got some interesting stuff coming to HBO Max in January, some stuff that I am very excited of, but I'll build up to that a little bit, give you a little tease. For those of you looking to get a theatrical experience of a new release at home, John Lee Hancock's new psychological thriller, The Little Things, starring Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto, is arriving on the streaming service January 29th. That's the same day that it is released in theaters, and much like Wonder Woman 1984, it will be on for 31 days at no additional cost to HBO Max subscribers. Also getting added next month will be movies such as Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2, and then the original Mummy with Brendan Fraser, also The Mummy Returns, will be added, and then you've got other movies such as Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, and then Mad Max Fury Road are also coming to next month as well. But the big one, the ones that I am most excited for coming next month, is the entirety of Batman the Animated Series.
All right.
Fuck yes. Batman Beyond. Also, Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises will be added to the streaming service. Superman Doomsday, and then Superman Man of Tomorrow. Ooh, that's the new one.
Yes.
And then Superman Returns will be joining the DC lineup next month, too. So I know what the hell I'm watching come January 1st on HBO Max. Batman Animated Series, baby. Give it to me.
Yeah, that's going to be all the video properties from DC Universe Infinite.
Almost.
Almost.
It is missing Justice League and Justice League Unlimited.
Okay.
It's almost all of them, though. It's the important ones.
Yes, I was going to say.
Also, Superman the Animated Series isn't on there, but it needs to be.
Well, I'm sure that they're going to acquire the rights. I think that now they're making the full transition over to whatever DC Universe Unlimited is going to be, or Infinite is going to be, rather, I should say. That I think, you're going to see everything wind up going to HBO Max.
Yep.
So for my one-shots, we definitely have to say a happy birthday to Stan Lee, who would have been 98 today.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yes, to the man, the myth, the legend. Obviously, rest in peace to him and for everything he's done. But 98 years old, he would have been.
Yeah.
One movie I did see over the weekend, though, and I would say I thought was a lot better than Wonder Woman 1984, is Disney Pixar's Soul.
I've heard good things about this.
This was very, very good.
Okay.
I will say it's on Disney Plus right now. You don't need the extra package like they did for Mulan. So this was supposed to come out to theaters, but they did drop it on Disney Plus on Christmas Day. And my God, man, this thing was impressive. I have to say, the story is about a musician who's lost his passion and goes through something after he finally gets a big break and winds up actually passing away, so to speak. And then is trying to find his way back because obviously he's had his big break in his life, and it's a very retrospective movie. One that has a great message behind it, a little bit dark and grim for the tones, but it is done so well. Jamie Foxx is the voice of the main character, Joe. Tina Fey does the voice of 22. And it just goes from there. It is phenomenal. It definitely has a great message behind it.
Yeah.
It might go over some, like if you have a younger audience, it might go over their heads a little bit.
Yeah.
But it is so well done. Like I say, I cannot speak highly about this enough. I think everybody should go check it out. It's only 140 minutes, or 1 hour and 40 minutes rather, but it's so worth the time. And the wildest note I took away from this movie.
Uh-huh.
Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails scored this movie.
Jesus Christ, that's a jump.
I did not know about this. I mean, I'm a huge Nine Inch Nails fan, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, that's wild.
But the music in this is obviously great. I mean, if you're in the jazz, there's so much excellent music about this. And like I say, I can't stress it enough. It definitely has a great message to it. And like I say, it's not something that I am too familiar with watching Pixar movies. It's not the first thing on my plate, but I wanted to give this a good shot because obviously this got overshadowed a little bit by Wonder Woman 84 coming out.
Sure.
And I was like, I need something to really...
I mean, Pixar's not one to shy away from the more adult, darker theme tones. I mean, if anyone's ever seen the movie WALL-E, I remember when that came out in theaters, I was on vacation in Florida visiting my aunt and cousin. And my aunt said, hey, you want to take your cousin to go see WALL-E? She really wants to see it, but I don't really want to sit through it. I go, yeah, sure, I'll take her to go see a movie. So my brother, sister, and I went to go see WALL-E, and God, my cousin had to be maybe like 8, 9, 10 years old at the time, and I remember sitting through it, and that has got some very adult, like, it's got some themes that would be a little lost on the kids, trash piled all over Earth. They can't live anywhere. Everyone's, become kind of lazy and they go right around in these automated chairs. So they got really fat and all this. I'm just sitting there watching this and I got back to my aunt's house. She goes, oh, what'd you think of the movie? I was like, oh, it's great. Did your cousin enjoy it? I go, oh, yeah, she enjoyed it. I'm like, I'm not sure she's going to understand some of the themes of the movie. So they're not afraid to go there.
No, they're definitely not. Like I say, I don't catch that many Pixar movies, but for me, I wanted to give this one a shot. I heard nothing but great recommendations from a bunch of our friends. And I was like, okay, let me give this a shot. And it's very, like I say, it's dark and grim when it's talking about death and afterlife. And, and like I say, the overall message of the story is you can't take a moment for granted. And you really need to appreciate the time you're in and go from there. And like I say, I thought Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey did an amazing job. And just the voices they have for this film, too. Yeah. I mean, this was just a top-notch production. And I know with Pixar, that's what usually comes with it. So I wasn't like, completely like, this is the first I've seen this.
Yeah.
Just the message it did and, the self-discovery that's involved with this, I thought is perfect way to really give some inspiration and some hope that if you're really, just not sure of, what's to come, just to appreciate every day.
Let's say I know Liz wants to see this, so I will see this at some point.
Yeah, dude, it is great. I mean, like I say, I definitely want to rewatch it. And I can't speak highly enough about it. It is on Disney Plus right now, so definitely check out Soul while it's there. I give it a very, very high recommendation. Speaking of recommendations, comic shop this week, X-Men number 16 is coming out for Marvel, so definitely. Whatever Hickman's been doing there in the X universe has always been top notch.
Yeah,
and I know they have some more King in Black spin-offs coming because obviously that whole storyline is
King in Black, Iron Man / Doctor Doom. Good God Almighty!
Yeah, anytime they pair up, like let's get weird.
Yeah,
it always gets weird with those two. Like I don't know why.
It's never simple.
No, it isn't. Like at least they're not going back to medieval times because that's happened.
Yeah,
true story, folks. Flipping over to the DC Comics side. Justice League Endless Winter 2 comes out, so obviously that storyline's been something to say the least. And there is also the Batman Annual, which, I'm sorry, when they put numbers on the annuals, they should just stop doing it.
Yeah.
Because every time they relaunch a series, they come out with a new annual. But obviously this one's about Clown Hunter, and if you know anything about Tinian's run, it's going to be getting weird and it's going to go a lot of different places.
Yep.
So any more recommendations, definitely head up over to our friends over at Cheers to Comics, Wednesday Poll List. Obviously, you can head over to our Twitter account at OD Parlay Hour, and we will point you to some great comic podcasts that definitely give you something to finish out 2020 strong with.
Also, Amazing Spider-Man number 55 from Nick Spencer is coming out this week, and it's going to be fucking batshit insane.
Yeah, there's so much good books coming out, too. Like I say, you definitely just want to go to your local comic shops, support them in any way, shape, or form you can, and definitely just go in there. If you're not sure what you should pick up, go, hey, what do you recommend? Trust us. They will give you some top-notch recommendations. I know I can speak locally for Justin at Sound Go Round. He will tell you a bunch of books you need to go pick up. In fact, we have to share his weekly poll list here on our Facebook page. So definitely head on over to ochodoropolio.com, like our Facebook page, and you'll see those updates pop up momentarily. So that all being said, Pad, the music you heard on this episode of the ODPH podcast is that of Shout at the Robots. They have a Patreon out. They're doing a lot of great things on there. But where do you find out about them?
OchoDuroParlayHour.com.
That's right. You head on over to the music section. You can definitely check them out. You can check out our good friend Tyler in Second Suitor, who is doing a performance Wednesday, when you hear this podcast, on their Facebook page. He's doing an acoustic set. It's going to be, he's got a lot of cool stuff planned there. But you can definitely check out what they're up to. You can check out what's going on with Tom Jolu, who has a new album coming out, and it sounds fantastic. And also Floodlands and all the great music you hear. And Brian Wolf, too, from Fair City Fire. All the great music you hear on the ODPH, you can check out there. Also on our website, you can check out friends of the show, such as Tom from Off the Cuff Gaming, Excite Wrestling, Organizational Link Support, and Black Lives Matter. And definitely want to shout out all our amazing friends in our pod groups via their Podchaser pages, because frankly, if you're not on Podchaser and you're in a group, you're not in a group. I'm sorry. You have to be Podchaser certified. It's like Facebook verified. So that being said, definitely shout out everybody in Pod Nation. Shout out to Legion Independent Podcast. Shout out to Alternate Reality Radio. Shout out to The Apocalypse. And shout out to hashtag 607 Podcast and our friends over at 8122 Productions, Rich Ron, Mike C, and hashtag Big Natty Cool. Still on Twitter, Pat.
Uh-oh.
He made it through an entire year. What does he have planned for 2021? Patreon.com/812 Productions to find out. All of that, our T Public store, which everybody's picking up some merch, so definitely want to rock some ODPH gear in 2021, and so much more can be found at OchoDuroParlayHour.com. That's all I got for 2020. So for the one and only Padawan
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken. Thank you, as always, for listening to the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. Have a safe and happy New Year, everyone. We'll see you next time.